Hello guys, welcome to the part 2 of the functions and nested loop program. Last video we tried to understand the concept of nested loop, the C functions, the prototypes and the header files. So for this video we're going to start from the tag 0 to see how to verify on some issues. But actually I'm going to use Replit to write the code. I'm not going to use Temios for today. So let's kick started. I'm sure you understand that Temios and Replit are just the same thing, but the only thing you need to do is to get the idea. When you get the idea, you can simply write on your own terminal. Okay, so let's get started. Now write a program that prints putchar followed by a new line. The first thing you got to do is to ensure that you go through this requirement. And if you look into the requirement, you would realize that you're not allowed to use a standard library or any kind of functions like printf, puts, and etc. They are all forbidden. You're only allowed to use putchar in this very project. Though I think towards the end of it, you're going to be allowed to use printf. But for now, you're going to use putchar. So the putchar is actually a function that has been written by Alex. You can see it's not the normal putchar that we know, which is putchar. There is an underscore here. And it is an Alex kind of program that has been written for you to use while writing your program. So the first thing you got to do is to click on the putchar. It's going to take you to the GitHub where the program has been saved. You can see it's right here. So just copy this code. It's not really necessary, all right? If you write your code and it's correct, you send it to GitHub, and then the checker comes, check your code. It's going to check you right. But I think it's necessary and it's important that you try to run it at your own end to ensure that you know what you're doing, to see how the thing really works. Don't just send the code to GitHub. All right, so get the code, copy right here, go to your, I'm going to use Replit like I said. So I'm going to create that file. Exactly what I'm going to do, use Torch or Vim or whatever and create your file. So I'm gonna call it putchar.c. This is exactly what you do at your end too. Is the same thing. I just want to use this because it's save time and it's fast to use here. All right, putchar.c, and then paste the code. All right, that's just the steps you need to take for that very one, and then save it. Okay, in terms of your VI, you know how to save and exit. In terms of Emacs, you know how to save and exit. But since I'm using Replit, all those protocols is not going to be here. So that's I'm going to use this to fast track my my video. All right, when you're done with that, the second thing you need to do is to create your main H. You can see here the prototypes of all your functions and the prototypes of the function putchar should be included in your header file called main.h. So that means you need to create another file called main.h. Okay, so after creating the file main.h, the next thing you do is to get all your prototypes. Now if you look at this putchar, where you have integer minus or underscore putchar in bracket char c, that is a prototype. So you need to write it here in your Replit, or sorry, your VI or whatever you're using in your file. You need to write the integer underscore putchar in brackets char and c. At the end you terminate it. Okay, when you're done with that, you move to the next one. The tag 0 has no prototype, so you can skip that one. Go to tag 1, copy this, exactly what you see here, that's your prototype, and then go to your file, that main.h file, enter, and then paste. Go back to the next one, the second one, copy this. All right, go to the main.h and then paste. Do that until you get to the end of your task, except there is no prototype. But when you see prototype, just copy it and be pasting them. All right, when you're done with that, the next thing you will need to do is to define your macros. Now what you simply write is hash if and def, and then the macro variable name can be anything you like. Let's say main underscore h. Okay, when you're done with that, the second thing you need to write is hash define the macro name, same thing, main underscore h. It's not compulsory to use underscore h. You can use anything you like. Then at the end of it, you close your end if. Okay, let me try to explain what that means. Now, the function of this if not def, if not defined, is if probably you have something like this: integer underscore pucha, cha and c in your prototypes. I have two right here. If you try to call this pucha in your work and you did not use the if and def, you will definitely have a problem or an issue with your code, because it's conflicting. You have two defined functions or two defined prototypes here. It's gonna conflict in your code, so hence you'll run into an error. Just take your mind back to when you were dealing with shell navigation, shell redirections. You can recall that something like this played out, such that if you have two values or two words in the adjacent line, you use unique, right, to remove one out of it, so that one can stand in for you. So the if and def has that same function. Instead of you making this mistake, or probably made this kind of mistake, and then instead of your program to run into an error, it will try to correct the error for you. So if not defined, define. But if it is defined already, don't define again. That's what just that thing means. Okay, now you can choose to also add something like your hash include let's say stdio. You can add any sort of header files here, right? Once you add them in your main function, you don't need to be calling them again. The only thing you need to write is to call the main h, and that's gonna help you run your program very fast. Okay. Okay, so having said that, I didn't write everything, so let me just paste everything because I had it already. Okay, so this is what you're expected to have in your prototype. This very header file, it's not actually compulsory for you to have it, but if you choose to do it, I think it's better this way to write your prototype in this manner. All right, so now you're done with that very one. The next thing you need to do is to start writing your programs. Okay, the first thing here on our list says write a program that prints pucha followed by a new line, and then the program should return 0. All right, and this is what they're going to use to compile your program. All right, so let's see how to do that. I'm going to write that in my main, since this program has no prototype, so I can define that in my main. There are two ways you can actually do this, or more than two ways depending on you. The first way is to simply call the function which you've created underscore pucha. Okay, and then I'm going to print first hyphen. I'm going to print put only. Okay, the second one, you try to call it pucha again, and then p, and the third one, let me just write put alone. Then at the end of it all, you need to print one new line. Of course, you got to return 0. Okay. Now, if you notice something, this is another thing that Replit is very, very good to use. If you understand the code right here, you can just relate that same knowledge to your terminal, and then it's gonna make your work very fast, and then you're gonna gain more efficiency in knowledge. Okay. So now, if you can look at this, your pucha is underlined. This is warning. Once you see yellow line, it means it's a warning. If it is red, it's an error. This warning is because you've declared pucha, but you've not called this pucha. Remember that our pucha is found in the main.h file, all right, which was defined in here as a prototype, but we've not referenced that prototype here. That's why we are having this error. So to simply do that, you have to call that prototype by using hash include, call your header file. You're going to use quotation mark and then main.h. Now you can see that the pucha is no more underlined because the compiler has been able to link up between this main page and your header file page. So if I run this, you can see puts on my screen. Okay, So that's the first method that you can use to write that very task. The second way is to use iterations. Okay, let's see how to do that. I'm gonna do it very quickly because we've done that before in the previous video. So the first thing I need to do is to declare a character data type, which is char, and then let me call my char x equal to I want to print the same put. Let me just complete it as put char. Okay, and then end this. Okay, now this put char is a string, but if you are using a put char to print it, to print put char, to print this value, this string value, that means you got to be looping through each of those characters, and each character it's like it's an array. A string is actually an array of characters. Okay, an array of characters, it's denoted by an index value starting from 0 to whatever value it can hold. In that respect, I'm trying to say that this underscore is an index of 0. The P has the index of 1. The U has the index of 2. You continue like that. So peradventure, for instance, I want to print that underscore alone. If I write something like underscore putchar, then I call the variable name x at the index of 0. Okay. If I try to run this program, what you have on the screen is underscore. Let's try that. You can see we have underscore here. Let me just add new line to make our work better. So you can see that we have an underscore right here. So if I change this man and then put something like 1, I'm going to have P printed out. You can see P. If I have something like, let's say 2, I'm going to see U printed out. So that means it's iteration. That will come to your mind, right? It's iteration. So that means if I have something like this, I try to iterate, let's say for I equal to, it's going to start by 0 because it's going to start with 0 because index starts with 0. Then I less than or equal to, you can count these values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, less than 7. All right. And then I plus plus. Okay. At any time you print 0, for the first time, I is 0, right? So I can simply put I in this place so that for the first time I is 0, it will print what? Underscore. For the second loop, I is 1, it will now print what? P continuously. All right. So we need to declare that variable integer I. Okay. So now if I run this program, you can see I have putchar on the screen. So this is a better option to use rather than using the other one that was initially done, because let's take for instance you have up to 1,000 characters. Are you going to be doing that for 1,000 times? No. And then the second thing I want to introduce here is that, take for instance you have like 5,000 characters. How are you going to be counting those characters to know it's actually 5,000 like you've written 7? Okay, that's not possible. So the best way to evaluate that is to say that is to call the variable of the character data type, which is x, and then pass it to the increment of I. So what this means is that the program will take responsibility of counting the characters by itself. Until it gets to the end of the character, it will continue to print. So if I run this, you can see that I have putchar on the screen instead of determining the exact number of characters. So if I try to increase this, let's say putchar is my fan, and then I run the program, you can see that it increases by itself. So I think this is the better option to use. Okay. I think that's that for that very task. If you have any question about that, you can drop a comment on my session or reach me out on my WhatsApp line, which is found on my GitHub. Okay, let's go to the next task here. The next task here says write a function that prints the alphabet in lowercase followed by a new line. This has been done in your previous video. I'm sure you did your hello world. or I think variables and loops. So you can just relate your idea to that very task and you'll be able to solve that problem. So let's go down. The next one here says write a function that prints 10 times the alphabet in lowercase followed by a new line. Okay, I think we've done something similar like this, but let me just try to remind you of what we did. Okay, the first thing you need to do is to create a file. All right, I'm gonna call my file A to I'm gonna print from A to K. Let me stop at K. So I'm gonna create a file and I'm gonna call that file A to K.c. All right, that's my file name. And now in this file, the first thing that you normally do is to write your hash include stdio.h, right? Okay. But now I'm not going to use stdio.h because I have declared it already on my main.h file, which is right here. So when I call my main.h, it will automatically invoke this library into my program. All right. So the only thing I'll be calling is just my main.h file, header file. That's all. All right. Then the second thing I'll do, note that you have been given a prototype. So you're not going to declare integer main here. No, you're not going to do that. But rather, you will simply go back to your function, to your task, then copy this function name. Okay, don't copy with the semicolon, just the function name. It is only prototype that needs the semicolon. Okay, then you paste it right here, depending on where you're working with. All right, I'm gonna open this. So how do you print alphabets? Of course, we know how to print. The first time is to learn how to print first. I've told you before, try to write your programs one after the other. Okay, now for let me call it alphabet equal to A. All right, semicolon. Alphabet is less than or equal to Z. Okay, I said I'm gonna stop at K, so let me stop mine at K, and then alphabet plus plus. All right. So before this, you got to declare a variable with the data type char and then ALP. That's my alphabet. So after this, you're gonna be printing that alphabet using char. Okay, and then ALP alphabet end. Okay, now since this function uses the void, you're not going to return anything. Okay, and now if I try to run this program, it's not gonna print this for me because I've not called this function in my main. Look at something. After you've written your prototype and your function and then sent to GitHub for Alex to check your code, if you look closely in this very place, you realize that there is something that I've introduced, main.c, which is not part of your work. You only have the pucha.c, and then you only have this very file you've created, but you don't have the main.c. So what they do is that they will have to create a main.c that they will use to call your function, which will print what is expected of you. So for you to learn and understand that what you're doing is right, you have to do the same thing too. So how will you do that? I can choose to come here and then change the content of my main.c. Since we are done with this one, let me just delete it. Or I can choose to comment this out for now. Let me just comment this out for now. All right. So what you do is to call that function, which is what? Print alphabet extend. So I'm just gonna copy this and then go to my main, then paste it there. All right, open and close brackets. That's all. So if I run this program, you can see A to K. All right, this is how to call a function. All right, okay, that's the first step. The second step is to print this A to K 10 places or 10 times. Mine, I'm gonna use 5 times. So what comes to your mind is nested loop. That means for the first time, it's going to go A to K. It have to go back again, count second, and then go back to what? A to K. If you actually look at my last video, I talk about minute and time. So what I will do is I'm going to declare an integer of I to loop through. So for I is equal to 1, then I is less than or equal to 5, okay, then I plus plus. Now at each time you count 1, try to print A to K. When you're done printing A to K, print what? A new line. So when you're done printing a new line, go back to the first loop and redo it again and again and again till you get to 5. So if I run this program, you can see I have A to K for 5 times. So I think that idea will help you to run your task successfully. All right. The next one here says, write a function that checks for lowercase characters. Okay, using this function. All right. So I'm going to copy this too. Let's copy that and then call it a file name. Let's call our file name lowercase.c. All right. And then I will call my header file as include main.h. Then I'll paste the function. So how do you check if a value is lower or uppercase? I think that's the question, right? Write a function that checks for lowercase. This is a prototype. Return 1 if C is lowercase, otherwise return 0. So I think that's very simple to write. Of course, that's what a conditional statement. So I'm gonna say if C is greater than or equal to the letter A, as in small letter, and C is less than or equal to Z. Okay, return 1, else return 0. All right, so that is just that for that program, because you're asked to return 1 if C is lowercase, otherwise that means if it's uppercase and whatever case it wants to be, return 0. So that's it. And now you can you may try to check your code. Let's try to check the code. Now what they did was they called R to be H, and then they tried to check if H is capital or lowercase. So what I'll simply do is to copy this. That's how to check your code. Just copy this into your main. That should be done in your main. So in your main file, just paste that and then run. So we have 0, 1, 1. And then if you look at this, we also have 0, 1, 1. That means that your code is correct. Okay. So let's look at the next one. Is alpha. The same thing applicable here is applicable here. So you can do that by yourself. The next one here is write a function. Write a function that prints the sign of a number. Okay. Return 1 and print plus if n is greater than 0. Return 0 and print 0 if n is greater than 0 itself. Then return minus 1 and print minus if n is less than 0. If you can remember your last project when you were dealing with is positive, is negative, is 0. That same idea is applicable here to solve your problem. All right. Okay, so the next one here says write a function that computes the absolute value of an integer, and the prototype is given as dot int underscore abs int. So let's just get this first, and then let's create a file. Or let me call it underscore abs.c. Okay. All right. Now, of course, the first thing you need to do is to use your hash, include your header file main.h. Okay, and then you paste that your prototype here, your function here. All right. Okay, the next thing that comes to your mind is, what is the meaning of ABS? What's the program supposed to do? Now, the standard library provides a similar function. You can run man ABS to find out more of what that means. So I can simply choose to check the manual man for ABS. Okay. So if you run here, you can go through this to actually check what it means. But I wouldn't have time to actually do that. Actually, if you look at this program, it can give you an insight. Example, the first time here r is equals to underscore abs minus 1, but when it was printed you have 1. Okay, here we have abs minus 98, but when it was printed we have 98. That tells you that every negative values is converted to positive numbers, and every positive numbers is allowed to print it the way it is, because here we have 0 and 0 is printed. So absolute means convert every negative numbers to positive numbers. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. So what you can simply do is this. Number one, in your function, your parameters in your cannot be empty. You cannot use integer abs and int here. There must be a variable associated to the data type. So first you can choose to put, let me say abs, or let me just say ab, or let me just use abs. All right. Okay. Then ensure that once you change anything here, you must go to your main.h and also change that that prototype to whatever you choose to add the abs. All right. Then you can now go back to the file to edit our code. Okay. So here we are gonna check for just one thing. If the value, if abs is less than 0, what will it do? You will simply return minus abs. Now, what does that mean? Take for instance in maths. All right, let me just do a little explanation there. Let's say my value of abs is less than 0, which means I can have minus 4, and then I say it should return minus abs. That means I'm going to return minus the value that was given. So what you simply return now is minus 4. Now, because of this, mathematically, your minus 4 will automatically be enclosed in a bracket. So you have something like this. Minus, because the abs value already is minus 4. But since you've defined minus here again, you have minus 4, which will be enclosed in a bracket. So if you open this bracket, minus will return what? To plus. So we now have what? 4. All right. That's just mathematical concept. I'm sure you're aware of that. So otherwise, it is not less than, else it is not less than 0. What you simply do is to return exactly the value that was given, which is abs. So let's run the program and see what happens. Okay, first you need to go and copy the main. This is just a test file, so you can copy this and then paste in your main, then run it again. Let's see. So we have 10198, and then if you look at here, we have 10198. Right, so that's that for that very task, and then we move ahead. The next one here says write a function that prints the last digit of a number. I think you've done this before in your previous task, so I'm sure you can handle that. And the next one here says write a function that prints every minute of the day of Jack. I don't know what this is called, starting from 00 to 2359. Okay, now I'm going to use printf to explain this concept first so that it will be very, very clear to you. When I'm done with printf, I can use a putchar to explain how to go about this. All right. Okay. So let's call it, let's write the file and call it time.c. Let me call it time.c. Okay. And then, of course, include. Then let's get the prototype. So let's get this and then paste it here. All right. Okay. Now, like I said earlier, you have to take things gradually, one by one. The first thing that comes to your mind is, how can I print 00:00 at the first stage? How can I print 00:00? All right. Okay. Now let's try to implement that. If I say print f 00:00 end, all right. Now let me go to my main and call this function. I'm gonna call the jack. I don't know what it's called, so let me just copy this and then go to main. I'm gonna call it here. Okay, open and close brackets. Okay, so let's go back to time and run this. Now you have 00:00. That's fine, but this is a string, right? And we don't want to write this in a string. We want to use numeric values to write this so that you can increment. Okay, so if you want to write that, at least you need to declare something. Let's declare first integer seconds. The second one is integer minutes. Okay, so if I say that my integer second is equal to 00, will that actually print? And then my minute is equal to the same thing, 00, will that actually print? So let's see. I'm now gonna say that okay, print %d for the first second, and then colon %d for the minute. Then I'm gonna call second, and I'm gonna call minute. Okay, so let's print that and see if that works. Now you notice that we have only 0 and 0, so 10 is not counted. In C language, if you try to print something like this, it will not print except you change your string format. So probably you don't know how to go about that. You can simply run into your Google and then type how to print 01. Oh, it's even how to print 01 instead of 1 in C. Okay. Now, if you look close, if you look around here, the first thing here says print 05D. I want to print an integer number, an integer data type in 5 place values. So let's try to apply this and see what happens to your screen. Exactly what you're seeing there for now. So I can say 05. I can also say 05 here and then run the program. Now what happens? I have 5 zeros. All right. So that means I can simply choose to use the normal 0, which I'm supposed to use here. And then in here, I will say 02. And I'll also say here 02. Okay. And then run the program and see what happens. I'll have the value 00.00. Okay. That's the first step. I can now print 00 and I can now print 00. Now, the second thing is, how will I increment my seconds to read 0 to 60? All right. Of course, that is for loop or while loop. Anyone you want to choose to use, it's fine. So having known how to at least print the 0 into place values. Now, if you look at the task here, you are asked to print starting from 00.00 to 23.59. So that means at every 60 seconds rather, or 60 minutes, it's going to print 1 hour until it gets to 23 hours, which makes 24 hours a day, because the next second or minute you make 24 hours. All right. So let's try to do that. There are ways you can actually do that. You can use the for loop, or you can use if statements. All right. Let me try to show you in 2 ways how to do that. Okay. The first way to do that is for nested loop for let's say second, or let me change it to minute and hour. It doesn't really matter. Let me just use minute and hour, min, and then hour, HUR. Let's use HUR. Okay, so this will become min, and this is gonna be, sorry, this is our min and this is our hour. Okay. For minutes, it's equal to, of course, it will start from 0, minutes less than 60, and then minutes plus plus. Okay, I'm gonna put this in a block. So when you are counting, ensure that you are printing this value. Okay, so let's just print that one and see what happens first. All right, so let's run the program. You got an error here. Okay, we've not closed our block. All right, let's run it again. Okay, we have everything is just looped together. So let's have a new line. When you, each time you print, try to give us a new line. /n. Let's try that again. Okay, so we have 0 to 59. Now, once you reach 59, you have to count 0 again, right? But when you count 0 at this point, the hour is supposed to be 1 hour. You continue like that until it gets to what, 23. So what you do is, for minutes is this, while you're trying to count minutes, let the hour be pending. So I'm gonna have another for loop above. So I'm gonna say for hour is equal to 0, start with 0, then hour less than or equals to 24. No, less than 24, not 24, not 20, not equal to 24. Yeah, less than or equal to 24, then hour plus plus. All right, each time you try to print 1 hour, ensure that you count 60 minutes first before you do the printing. Okay, so at every cycle you have to print. So I'm gonna copy this, the same thing. At every cycle you have to print this man, an hour. Then you close this. Let's run that and see what happens. Okay, and this is because at every cycle you're supposed to have a new line here. Print f slash new line. All right, and this line is not supposed to print the last one, so it's gonna be less than or equals to 59. Okay, so let's try that again. Okay, you can see we have 2359 as the last value, which was actually given here, 2359. And then if you try to run this, you're supposed to have 1440. So let's see to that. Let's go to our shell, play this, and then first we need to compile our C. So let's have our gcc main.c and time.c. okay, then we have a.out, pipe it to wc minus l. Okay, so you can see we have 1440, which is the same value that is printed here, 1440. So that we are very correct with our code. That's number one way, or first way to actually write that code. The second way you can write that code is this. Okay, let's start the second way around. Now, the first way I'm going to declare is for minute, it's equal to 0, and the minute is less than 59. Oh, sorry, minute is less than or equal to 59. Okay, and then minutes plus plus. All right. Now here we're going to use a conditional statement to write this very program also. So what we're going to say is that you have to print the value for me, print f percentage 02d, another one 02d slash n, comma, hour and minute. Okay, then now we're going to have some kind of condition in here, and that's if the minute as you are counting is equal to 59. If the minute is equal to 59, then you have to increment your hour. So hour will be incremented by 1. So hour plus equal to 1. All right. And then immediately you do that, you have to recycle again such that your minute will now become 0. And this is supposed to be in a block. So now, if you run this program, it will run into an infinite loop because you've not actually declared when your hour will stop. So let's just try that and see what happens. Let me run this. Now you see, it is printing. It has no ending because the hour has not been declared when to stop. So it will keep running, and running. So what you'll do is to tell your compiler, once your hour is less than 24 or is equal to 24 at approximately that value, you have to stop the program. So it will say if hour is equal to 24, which is the last value of the hour, you have to break out of the program, break out of the loop. So let's see to that again. Okay, so now you can see that we have 23 and 59 as the last value. So this is the second way you can actually write this program. All right. But now if you look into this code, you will see some bugs, some error, because immediately after it counts, let's look at that place, 59, it is now counting 0001. So the program has skipped one value, 00. So we need to implement that. Now how do we implement that? When you increase your hour plus 1 and then return the minute to 0, you have to print this value again before you increment the minute again. So that means you need to print it here before you try to increment the minute. So let's run that again. Okay, so it is now settled here, but then it is printing the last value, which is 24. So we need to also treat that. All right, so for you to do that, you need to print this value after the check for the break. So what the program will do is that ensure you always check if it is close to, if it is 24. If it is 24, then don't bother printing again. But if it is 24, if it is not up to 24, print. All right. So but what the program was actually doing here was the program prints first before it checks if it is 24. So it's already printed 24 before it checks and then exit the program. So what you simply do is to cut this if statement here and then take it above the second print statement. so that if it is up to 24, then don't bother printing, just break out. All right. So if you run this, let's see. Okay, you can see that it stops at what, 59, and then let's see if the bug has been treated. 59, and then we have 0. Okay, so it's treated. Now let's see if we still have 1440 as required. So let's compile again. All right, and then this a.out, give it to WC to count for me. So I still have the same value, 1440. So that's okay. We are done with that very task. Though you're supposed to use putchar to write this program, I just give it to that. Try to use putchar where you have the printf, change it and put your putchar. It's still gonna be the same thing with you. All right. Okay. You're asked to write a program that prints the 9 times table. That means it's gonna print from 0 time table, 1 time table, 2 till the 9th time table. So let's see how to do that. I'm gonna create a file and I'll call it times timetable .c. Okay. So let's get the prototype. Now, if you think of this program, you will definitely understand that it has a relationship of what you've been doing all this while. It's still nested loop, all right? Now, what happens there is that it's gonna hold a particular value and keep while it increments the others. Let's say I have 0 for the first time. It's gonna multiply 0 times 1 times 2 till 9. When it's done with that, it picks the next value 1, multiplies 0 again till 9, pick the next one. So it continues in that looping process. So what you got to do there is to first declare 2 integer data type. So we have integer, let's call it the first one, let me just call it A, and then I can say the second one is B. Okay, so I'm gonna have 2 for loop or while loop depending on which one you want to use. So for, let's say, A equal to 0, all right, and then A less than or equal to 9, A plus plus. All right, let's put that in a block. Okay, now so while you're trying to increment 0 to 9, don't do anything. Instead, give a room for another for loop to iterate also. So the B is gonna iterate from 0, all right, and then B is gonna be less than or equal to 9 as well. B, of course, plus plus. All right, now at this point, when you increment the value of B, multiply it with the value that was already held, which was 0. So that means I'm gonna print F percentage D. Okay, I'm gonna add space here, then comma A multiply by B. All right. Okay, now when you're done with that, go out of that very loop and then go to the next loop and then print putchar new line. Okay, so at this basic level, let's see what the program will do before we check for other things. All right, so you can see we have 0, 0, 0 here, 0, 1, 2, 3 to 9, 0 times 2, 2, 2 times 2, 4, 4 times 2, 6. So we have our correct timetable. But the problem we have is that it doesn't look just like this one. You can see this one looks neat. So the only thing they have here is that there's a comma and there is 2 space when there is a single value. Notice this. If it's a single digit, we have 2 space. But if it is 2 digits, we have only 1 space. So that brings about an if statement. So let's try to create this one first. So I'm gonna have here a comma. All right. Now, there will be a condition such that if the result is in 2 digits, all right, print one space. But if it is one digit, print what? Two spaces. So what I'm going to do right now is to I'm going to save my result as, let's call it sum, or let me call it multiplication. Yeah, mul. So mul will be equal to A times B. At this juncture, mul will be equal to A asterisk B. Because it is now more than one statement in this for loop, I have to open a block. Don't always forget that. So I have to open a block to curtail that. All right. Now here, I'm not going to print AB again. Instead, I'm going to print what? Mul. So let's apply our if statement. Now, if the value of mul is greater than 9, of course, when it's greater than 9, that means you're going to enter 10, which is 2 decimal places. If it's greater than 9, then your printing should be just one space. Just one space. All right. Else printf and then give me 2 spaces. %d, comma, 2 spaces, and then mul. All right. So let's see what happens to this program. Let's run. All right. You can see we have something. I think it's just like this. Let's check again. Okay, I think I can see a little issue here. Now the issue we have here is that, okay, if you look at this, our multiplication timetable, it is left aligned. That means if you look at this from 0, 2, 4, 8, 10, it is aligned leftward. But if you look at LX, it is aligned at the right position. Okay, so we'll have to try to solve this. All right. So how can we do that? Now, if you think very well, there is something I discovered. You discover that. Now let's look at this. Okay. When this man is 8, this is one digit. Hence, we are still going to have 2 spaces here. All right. So this man will shift. All right. But when this man is now 2 digits, we have only 1 space here. So this place is affected. Because of this place here, everything will be affected. That's why it's shifting leftward. So we will look forward for a way to check the value that is next to the single value. Now what I mean is that we have 0, we have 4, we have 8. The next value after that will be 12. So instead of checking if this present value is 1 or 2 digits, we will instead check, while you are printing 8, check if the next value that will come will be 2 digits, which after you will now keep 1 space. So let's try to apply that. So I'm going to do something that may be a bit technical here. I will define another variable name and I will call it, let's say, let me call that one X. Okay. So the X will check starting from 1. So we're going to have X will be equal to 1 here. And then, of course, the X will also stop at 9. So I will not need to touch here. I'll rather come to the end and increase X plus plus. Okay. So what happens here is that X will be checking ahead while the B is checking normally. So I'm going to define another variable that will take responsibility of multiplying the values together to find out if the next value is 2 digits or 1 digit. So let me call that check CHK. All right. And then I'll also multiply CHK here. Will be equal to A, and this time around multiplied by X. Okay. So in here, I'm going to be checking that if CHK is greater than that single value 9, then do what? Shift them to the right for me. Okay. So if I think I'm done. If I run this program, let's see what happens. So you can see everything is shifted to the right hand side. I know it looks very, very logical, but you need to sit down probably and look at the code again. Try to understand the code one after the other in lines. Then you have an idea of what I actually did here. So if you look at this and then look at LX, I think we have almost the same output except for the last part. Now at the end of it, you're not supposed to print a comma again. All right, you're supposed to print just the last value. So I believe that we've done that before and you can do it. All right, but let's see how to implement that. So to do that, you actually need to find out what is the last condition or what is the last value that prints these last numbers here. And if you look closely, if you count, you have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it is the 9th time that always prints this condition here. And now the second question is it the first for loop or the second for loop? Of course, the first for loop holds down the value and then do what? Increment by the second value. So it is the second value or the second for loop that takes responsibility of printing this last number, depending on whatever the first value of for loop holds. All right. So what is going to happen now is if this B, all right, if the loop of B reaches 9, which is the last value, then don't print the comma. That's the condition there. So let's try to apply that. So I'm going to write alongside with this. If CHK is greater than 9, all right, and sorry, this is the end. Then end B is not equal to 9. That is the only way you can print this percentage D with comma. Okay, that's the first condition. But else if B is equal to 9, all right, then printf percentage D without a space nor a comma. Just print the value. All right. Otherwise, print with 2 spaces. So I don't know if you got that. If CHK, that means if whatever you were checking, the value ahead is greater than 9, only on the condition that B is not equal to 9. That's when you can print this value with a space and a comma. But whereas B is equal to 9, do not print with what? A comma. All right. So let's see what this does. Let's see what happens. Okay. So you can see that the last values has no comma and has no space. And then if you look at this, I think we have the exact parameters of values as expected. So I believe that could be all for now. The video is almost 1 hour length, and then if I want to continue, it's gonna take a very long time. But for this very task 10, I think it's one of the easiest tasks so far. You are asked to write a program that adds 2 numbers. Okay, now let me just do that one quickly, and then that will be the end of the task. So let me call this add underscore num, okay, .c. I'm gonna be very fast with this one. It's quite very easy. So let's get the prototype. All right, and then #include main.h. The prototype is right here, and let's open the block. Now I've told you before that this cannot be a data type alone, so you must to put something inside. So let me say integer a, comma, and integer b. A and integer b. So as simple as possible, I can simply say return in bracket printf open bracket a plus b, and then okay, we have to specify our format specifier. So it's gonna be decimal, it's gonna be integer data type, so D. Then I think that's just all. I think you can see how easy the program looks. So that's one of the simplest programs so far. And then if I go to my main, I can call that function. I think it was add, right? Let's see if it's add. Yeah, add. So I'm gonna say add 3 and 7, or 5 and 7. That's gonna give me 12. But before then, you have to go to your main.h and then add that file. Add the variable we've just added. I think we are using a and then b. Okay, so let's run that. You can see we have 12. So I think that's one of the commonest program in here. Okay, so I don't know if you have any question. You can drop it on the comment section. I'll do justice to it, or you can reach me out on my WhatsApp line. It's found on my GitHub. My GitHub is www.github.com/engentech. Okay, you can reach me right here and then get my WhatsApp number, contact me. I'll do justice to your questions, the ones I can answer, because I'm not perfect in programming. All right, so until then, see you in my next video. Bye for now, and ensure you subscribe. Please do well to subscribe and share this video. Bye bye.